So Damion Lowe, he's been given one of the highest player rating, and the player that has a higher rating than the captain is Dexter Lambakisa, right? So Damion Lowe here has a player rating of 7.6. Dexter Lambakisa, to reiterate, as a player rating of 7.8. And I do want to give Damion Lowe his credit because he's a player there that faces an abundance of criticism. Whether you think that's fair or not, I'll leave that down to you guys to decide. But I think, maybe, I don't know, you can call it overpraising. I don't think it is. I think it's well deserved flowers placed at the bottom of Damien's Lowe feats. I think that was a captain's performance, quite literally, from the player there that's usually the vice captain, again stepping up in the absence of the injured Andre Blake. But from that performance there, I think we can all agree, despite the heavy criticism that is usually tied to his name, that he gave us a captain's performance. He stepped up in the absence of skipper Andre Blake. And I think scoring inside the 6th minute, I think when you do things like that, what you actually do in reality is set the tone. And I think that was an absolute must in a game where you want to start off on the front foot, and more so in terms of results wise, you want to be getting a win, but not just that, but you want to be getting a win that also comes with a healthy goal difference. I think, scoring inside the 6th minute from the captain not only set the tone, but I think it also helped to settle the front three that is vastly inexperienced when it comes to playing with each other. They've never played with each other before, up until the Bermuda game. So I think when the captain stepped up, and I think that was a striker's finish from Damion Lowe, I think he definitely helped to calm things down a bit. If there were any nerves, and perhaps you have naturally you will have nerves going into games, especially when you care about something, when you're passionate about any project that you're taking on. There's always going to be those little nerves, those little butterflies in your stomach. And I'm sure, the players are human beings. They're no difference to you and I. So they probably had some nerves there. We couldn't see it, thankfully, especially from those the young trio there across the front three. But again, I think getting that goal there from Damion Lowe absolutely helped to calm the nerves. And who else other than your captain, one of the most experienced player out in the black, gold, and green for the Reggae Boyz. And I think with a player like Damion Lowe, it's almost written in the stars in terms of whether we qualify for next summer's World Cup. I hope and pray to God that we do. But I think it's almost written in the stars for a player like a Damion Lowe to score a decisive goal. And we know he has it in his arsenal to do so, but it's almost just so written in the stars for a player like the vice captain Damion Lowe to score those decisive goals, those tone setters for us. And I think for someone like him, I'm not going to say that he wants it more than his teammates, because who am I to say that? I think they all equally, I should think, want it just as bad as each other. But for someone like Damion Lowe, he probably wants it a tad bit more. Again, not saying that he does, but he probably wants it just a tad bit more because of the history that's at stake for him. He needs no introduction. We don't really need to sit here and do a little history lesson on who he is and his father. But for those of you who aren't aware, his dad was part of the very first Jamaica football team that successfully qualified for a World Cup. And obviously we're talking about the World Cup of 1998. So I'm sure he wants to put himself in the history book of saying, father and son to qualify for a World Cup, father and son to play at a World Cup. So I think, from an outsider looking on, I don't think it's far-fetched to say, what, perhaps he does want that a little bit more. Not saying that he does, but I wouldn't be surprised if that is the case, that he's got that burn, that fire in his stomach to say, what, I want this, and I want to be the person that's scoring the decisive goal. So far he's given us a tone setter. If he can go ahead and do maybe one or two better against where arch Caribbean rivals Trinidad and Tobago in tomorrow's match, another decisive game. Then fair play to him, and long may it continue, long may the goals continue, long may the assists continue. And in terms of written in the stars, again, it's written in the stars for a Damion Lowe to score the decisive goal to take the men's team back to a FIFA Men's World Cup, first time in doing so since 1998. And I think it's probably also written in the stars for someone from the JPL to be the decisive goal scorer when that golden moment appears before the year concludes. But by then we should know whether or not we've booked a ticket to the World Cup. So how magical would it be for it to be a player like a Warner Brown, heavily slept on. We know that those Jamaica Premier League players are heavily slept on, but a player like Warner Brown is a blessing in disguise. He's proving that, look, if I am good enough to play, I should play. Doesn't matter whether you respect the JPL or not. He's a player there that deserves to be in the national team. Long may it continue. And in terms of the JPL players there, I'm going to add Richard King to it. I know he's now playing for St. Mirren in Scotland, but obviously he broke into the team while he was a JPL player. So how magical would it be for Richard to give us a Kingsman performance and take us back to the World Cup? It's those moments that are just written in the stars. Those are what you call silencing the naysayers, and I am all for it. Could it be Bailey that does it? New recruit, 20 years old, I believe, young, relatively new to the team. Could he be the man that when that golden moment appears, could he be the one that grabs the game by the scruff of the neck and takes Jamaica back to the biggest of stage? Could it be a Dexter Lambakisa? Could it be a player from the diaspora? There's so many wonderful stories there that's just written in the stars, and I am just praying to God that it does come to fruition for someone. I don't know who that player is going to be, but I am just praying to God that your story does come to fruition. And can you imagine if you're a player, you've worked your ass off up until this point, and you are the man that takes your country back to the biggest of stage sports, the biggest stage. I don't think there's a sporting competition that's bigger than the FIFA World Cup, whether you're talking about the men's side of things or the women's side of things. I think it's the biggest sporting competition in the world, whether you want to say arguably or factually. Can you imagine being that goal scorer that does that, brings an end to almost 30 years of waiting? That's the type of thing that makes a grown man cry. Whoever that player is, you're going to be shedding tears of joy because you're going to be the man to uplift your nation. You're going to be the man that goes home and tells his kids this story a million times over, and your kids are going to tell their kids, and they're going to tell their kids, and you're going to be bragging, and your country are going to be bragging with you, and it's going to be redemption. So many players there have a story to tell, and I cannot wait to see who is going to be the one that puts up the Kingsman performance, who is going to be the one to write their names in the history book. I cannot wait, guys. It's the one thing that I'm truly excited about to see who's going to be the player to do this.
I'm John Barnes, and you're watching Talawa TV with Crystal Davis.